All right, welcome back everybody to the deep dive. Today we're diving deep, as always, into something I'm sure a lot of you are thinking about: how to actually think in English.
It really is a different level, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Like you can learn all the words, you can know all the grammar,
Yeah.
but to think without translating,
Right.
that's the goal.
Right. That's the dream, right? That's fluency.
That's real fluency, exactly.
Okay, so we've got a whole stack of articles and notes here
Yeah.
all about this topic: how to think in English.
Practical strategies, so
Yeah.
not just theory, right?
Yeah.
Stuff you can actually use.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, they hear these things and it's like, okay, but how?
Exactly.
So we're trying to get into the how.
Exactly.
Okay, so like one of the first things that comes up again and again is that whole idea of immersion.
Immersion, yeah.
Yeah.
Create that English world around you.
Like people hear that all the time.
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like?
So I think it's not just having like English radio on in the background or something.
Yeah, right.
It's about actively engaging. So reading, right, but not just reading like a textbook for study.
Yeah.
Reading stuff that's actually interesting to you, right?
Novels, like fun
Like
stuff.
novels, blogs, whatever it is.
Yeah, news.
News, exactly.
In a lot of the articles we looked at, we're talking about listening.
Yeah, listening's huge.
Like podcasts. Some of them even said like Friends, Big Bang Theory.
Oh, yeah. Classic sitcoms are great.
But why? Like why those?
I think it's because they use that natural, everyday language, you know?
Real conversation.
Real conversations, exactly. You hear the slang, the idioms,
Yeah.
the way people actually talk, not just like a textbook.
Right, right. So it's not just having it on in the background while you're cooking or something.
Oh, no. You got to be paying attention.
You're really listening.
Trying to understand every word.
And then the other thing that came up a lot was talking.
Yeah. That's the scary one for some people.
Of course.
But it's so important.
Finding someone to talk to.
Exactly, yeah. A native speaker, if you can, or a language partner.
Like a language exchange.
Exactly. And it's different to just listening, right?
Yeah, totally different.
Because now you have to produce the language yourself.
Come up with the words, the sentences.
In real time.
So think about your day, right? Where are the places that you could fit in more English? Like change your phone settings to English, stuff like that.
Absolutely. Every little bit helps.
Okay, so the next big thing that came up a lot was vocabulary.
Vocabulary, yeah. Gotta have the words.
Got to have the building blocks.
Exactly.
But it's not just about, memorizing lists of words.
No, it's got to be active, right?
Right.
You learn a new word, use it in a sentence, straight away.
Yeah, immediately. A
Yeah.
lot of the articles said, like, you make it a habit. Every day, learn a new word.
I like that. Make it part of your routine.
Yeah. And they were talking about things like flashcards.
Flashcards, yeah. Or apps like Anki.
Oh, right. Anki. I've heard of that.
Spaced repetition. So you see the word again and again, but at longer and longer intervals.
Oh, interesting. So it sticks in your brain better.
Exactly. It's really effective for long-term memory.
Okay. And this one I thought was really interesting. They were talking about using English dictionaries.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It can seem a bit weird at first.
Yeah, because it's like, well, why wouldn't I just use my own language?
Right, but the idea is by using an English dictionary, you're forcing your brain to understand the meaning of the word.
Within English.
Within English itself, exactly. So you're not translating, you're thinking in English from the start.
Oh, I get it. So you're building those connections in your brain directly.
Exactly. So, immersion, vocabulary, all good stuff.
Yeah. But how do we actually get our brains to make that switch?
Right, to actually start thinking in English.
Yeah. What did the articles say about that?
Well, there was this idea of consciously practicing thinking in English.
Consciously, so it's not just going to magically happen.
No, you got to put in the effort.
Okay, so what kind of effort?
Well, one thing they suggested was this idea of an internal monologue.
An internal monologue. So like talking to yourself.
Yeah, but in English.
So just like describing what you're doing.
Exactly. Like I'm walking to the kitchen, I'm making a cup of tea. Simple stuff.
Oh, I see. So you're narrating your life.
Exactly. And another thing they mentioned was mind mapping.
Mind mapping.
But doing it in English.
Oh, okay. So instead of like thinking it through in my own language and then translating it.
Exactly. You're planning, brainstorming, all in English.
Okay. And the last one that came up a few times was keeping a journal.
A journal, yeah. Writing down your thoughts and feelings.
But in English, obviously.
Of course.
And the idea is that, like, over time, your brain just starts to get used to it.
Yeah, the more you practice, the easier it becomes.
So start small. Don't worry about being perfect.
Exactly. It's about building the habit.
And there was a lot of talk about how important it is to engage with native English content.
Oh, absolutely. Get out of the textbook and into the real world.
So that means, like, what? Watching movies, listening to music.
Yes, but also things like following English-speaking social media influencers.
Oh, okay.
See how they use language, what kind of slang they use.
Yeah, that's a good point, because language is always changing, right?
Constantly. And you pick up on those nuances by being exposed to it.
Okay, so social media, what else?
While reading news articles from English-speaking countries,
All right.
you get a feel for the culture, the context.
And you start to see those idioms in action.
Exactly. Those phrases that don't translate literally.
Yeah, and some of the articles were talking about joining online forums.
Forums, discussion groups, yeah. Places where you can interact with native speakers.
Oh, so you can actually practice your speaking and writing.
Exactly. And you get feedback, which is so valuable.
So, we've talked about immersion, vocabulary, active thinking.
All important stuff.
But I know one thing that a lot of people struggle with is that urge to translate.
Ugh. Yeah. The word-for-word translation trap.
It's hard to break out of that.
It is. But it's crucial if you want to think in English fluently.
So what's the strategy there?
Well, one thing is to practice forming complete sentences in your head.
So not just translating each word individually.
Exactly. Think in chunks of meaning.
So you're getting that flow of English, the sentence structure.
Exactly. And another thing is to focus on learning common phrases and idioms.
As whole units.
As whole units, yeah. Don't try to dissect them and translate them literally.
Right, because they often don't make sense that way.
Exactly. They lose their meaning.
Okay. Now, we can't forget about technology. I mean, it's everywhere these days.
It's a powerful tool for language learning, that's for sure.
So how can we use it to help us think in English?
Well, there are all those language learning apps, right?
Duolingo, Babbel, those kinds of things.
Exactly. They give you structured lessons, vocabulary practice, grammar exercise.
Then they're so convenient.
You can use them on your phone, on your computer, anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, you can squeeze in a few minutes here and there.
And another great tool is voice assistants.
Like Siri or Google Assistant.
Yeah. Use them in English, ask them questions, set reminders.
Oh, I like that. So you're practicing your speaking and listening at the same time.
Exactly. And it's low pressure, right?
Yeah, no one's judging you.
It's just you and your device.
Okay, so technology can definitely help.
Yeah.
But we've got to put in the work, right?
Absolutely. Consistency is key.
The articles really emphasized that, didn't they?
Repetition, setting goals, practicing regularly.
Yeah, making it a habit, like even if it's just for a few minutes every day.
Every little bit adds up.
So let's talk about some specific skills, starting with listening.
Listening, yeah. The foundation of understanding.
It's got to be strong if you want to be able to think in English.
Absolutely. And the articles had some great practical tips.
Like what?
Well, watching movies and TV shows is a classic one.
But I guess it's not just about passively watching, right?
No, you got to be actively listening. Paying attention to the pronunciation, the intonation, the way they use the language.
Yeah, trying to understand every word.
And try watching without subtitles if you can.
Oh, that's a challenge.
It is, but it's a great way to push yourself.
Okay, what else for listening?
Podcasts, audiobooks.
Right.
The BBC has some great resources for English learners.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
Yeah.
And music, don't forget about music.
Music is huge, yeah. Listen to the lyrics, try to understand what they're saying.
And sing along if you can.
Exactly, make it fun.
Okay, any other active listening techniques?
Shadowing is a good one.
Shadowing, what's that?
So you listen to someone speaking and try to repeat what they're saying at the same time.
Oh, okay, so you're kind of like their shadow.
Exactly. It helps with pronunciation and fluency.
And then summarizing what you've heard.
Yeah, that's a good way to check your understanding.
Okay, so that's listening. Now let's talk about speaking.
Speaking, yeah. The one that makes people nervous.
For sure. It can be intimidating.
But the more you practice, the easier it gets.
So how do we get that practice?
Well, finding a language exchange partner is a great option.
We talked about that before, yeah.
There are websites and apps that connect you with native speakers.
And you can help each other out, right?
Exactly. It's a win-win.
What about, like, real-world situations?
Well, if you can, try attending English conversation groups or meetups.
Oh, right, like those English corners.
Exactly.
Well,
they can be a bit nerve-wracking at first, but they're really helpful.
you don't even have to go out, right?
Yeah. You can practice speaking at home.
Yeah.
Talk to yourself.
Again, with the talking to yourself.
It works. Describe what you're doing, what you're thinking.
Okay, I'll give it a try.
And another good tip is to record yourself speaking.
Oh, yeah, that can be scary.
It can be, but it's also really helpful. You can hear your mistakes, identify areas you need to work on.
So all of this, it builds on a solid foundation of vocabulary and grammar.
Right. Absolutely. You can't build a house without bricks and mortar.
So vocabulary, we talked about that. Any other tips for expanding it?
Read. Books, articles, anything that interests you.
Yeah, and write down new words.
Yes. Keep a vocabulary notebook.
And use those new words in your speaking and writing.
Exactly. Make them active.
And those apps like Anki can help.
Absolutely. Spaced repetition is so effective.
Okay, and grammar.
Grammar is the glue that holds everything together.
So how do we make sure our grammar is up to scratch?
There are some great grammar books out there. English Grammar in Use is a classic.
And websites too, right?
Lots of them. Grammarly, BBC Learning English.
Okay, so we've got the knowledge, we're practicing our skills. What about actually using English in the real world?
That's where it all comes together.
So how do we make that happen?
Well, if you have the opportunity, try to use English at work or in your studies.
Even if it's just for small things.
Every little bit counts. And if you can travel to an English-speaking country, that's amazing.
All immersion.
Exactly. You're forced to use English all the time.
And that can be a huge motivator.
Yeah. For sure. And speaking of motivation, it's important to stay engaged to keep things fun.
Yeah, because learning a language can be a long journey.
It can be. So set yourself goals, reward yourself for progress.
And find things that you enjoy doing in English.
Exactly. Whether it's watching movies, listening to music, reading books, whatever it is.
Okay, and the last thing that came up in the articles was this idea of visual and contextual learning.
Yeah. Thinking outside the box a little bit.
So what does that look like?
Well, one thing they suggested was describing pictures in English.
Oh, interesting. So you're connecting the image with the language.
Exactly. And another thing was to imagine real-life scenarios.
So like role-playing in your head.
Kind of, yeah. Think about how you would respond in different situations.
Okay, so it's all about building those connections in your brain.
Making English an automatic part of your thinking process.
So we've covered a lot today. What's the main takeaway?
Thinking in English is a journey, not a destination.
It's a process.
It takes time. It takes effort.
But it's definitely possible.
Absolutely. With the right strategies and consistent practice, you can train your brain to think in English.
So as you go about your day, think about all the things we've talked about today.
And try to incorporate them into your life.
Even if it's just for a few minutes.
Every little bit helps.
And who knows, maybe one day you'll find yourself thinking in English without even realizing it.
That's the dream, isn't it?
That's the goal. All right, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.